I only wanted peace and a quiet life. I bought a small piece of land and got the legal permission to build a simple storage shed. But just a few days later, a woman named Karen, who was the president of the Homeowners Association, walked up to me with a fake paper and said I had to pay $500 every day or stop building. She claimed the land was now a protected green space, even though I had proof that it was not. She posted lies about me on the internet, turned neighbors against me, and even called the police. But what she did not know is that I spent 10 years working in city planning, and I helped write the rules that people like her try to break. Karen picked the wrong person to mess with, and in the end, the truth came out in front of the whole town. After working for many years in a busy city, I decided it was time for a change. I wanted a slower life, a fresh start, and some peace and quiet. So I moved to a small town where everything seemed calm and friendly. I found an empty lot, not too big, just perfect for what I had in mind. I planned to build a small storage shed and maybe plant a few flowers around it. I followed all the rules, went to the city office, and got all the permits I needed. Everything was legal and approved. For a few days, things were going well. The sun was shining, the land was clean, and I felt happy. But then, something strange happened. A woman named Karen, who said she was the president of the Homeowners Association, came to my property. She looked angry and said I was not allowed to build anything. She told me the land had been changed into a protected green space and that I would have to stop right away. I was confused. I had never heard anything about this. She gave me a piece of paper that looked like a fine and told me I had to pay $500 every single day until I removed everything. That was the moment I knew my peaceful new beginning was about to become a serious fight. I stood there, holding that piece of paper, trying to understand what was going on. Karen spoke to me like she was in charge of everything, but something did not feel right. The paper she gave me did not look official. It had no city stamp, no legal wording, just something printed at home. It said I had to stop building and pay $500 every day. I asked her where the rule came from, and she told me the Homeowners Association had passed an emergency rule to protect green space. But I had already checked the rules before I bought the land. Nothing had changed. Still, I decided to be careful. I paused the work and went back to the city office to double-check everything. The people there looked at my documents and said, "You are fine. Your permits are valid. Nothing new has been filed." I went home thinking the problem would end, but instead it got worse. The next day, Karen returned, this time with 2 other board members from the Homeowners Association. Their names were Patricia and David. They stood in my yard and told me I was breaking the law. They waved the same fake paper at me and demanded I stop everything. I stayed calm and told them, "This paper is not legal and I have a right to build here." But they did not care. They acted like they could do anything they wanted. That was the first real strike. I was no longer dealing with one angry woman. Now, the whole board was coming after me, and they were not following the law. After that day, I knew I could not trust Karen or her friends from the Homeowners Association. So I started keeping records of everything. I saved every letter, every photo, and every message. I also kept checking the town's official website and office. There were no new rules, no changes, nothing to support what Karen was saying. But instead of backing off, Karen got louder. One morning, I opened my phone and saw pictures of my lot posted on the neighborhood social media group. Karen had taken photos from strange angles to make it look like I was destroying the land. She wrote a long post saying I was harming the environment and breaking HOA rules. It was all lies, but people believed her. Some of my neighbors started looking at me differently. A few even stopped talking to me. The friendly smiles I saw when I first moved in were now cold and distant. Karen did not stop there. She began sending letters to my mailbox almost every day, each one saying I owed more money for breaking HOA rules. It was like she wanted to scare me into giving up. She had no legal power over my land, but she acted like she owned the entire neighborhood. Her two board members, Patricia and David, joined her in spreading the lies. I felt completely alone. I had done nothing wrong, but I was being treated like a criminal. I could have packed up and left, but deep down I knew something bigger was going on. And I was not going to let lies and fake rules win. Not this time. I decided it was time to stop guessing and start digging. If Karen was going to keep pushing fake rules, I needed real facts. So I went to the county recorder's office, the place where all land records, maps, and property lines are kept. I asked for the official survey of my lot, and when I opened the file, everything became clear. There it was, printed in black and white. The boundary line of the Homeowners Association ended 50 feet before my land even began. My property was completely outside of their control. The HOA had no right to tell me what to do, no power to fine me, and no reason to bother me at all. I could not believe it. After everything they had done, all the threats and lies, it was based on nothing. I held that map in my hands and knew I finally had the proof I needed. The next day, I walked right up to Karen with a copy of the official survey. I showed her the boundary line and explained it clearly. My land is not part of your HOA. You have no authority over me. For the first time, Karen looked nervous. Her smile disappeared and she got angry. She told me I was wrong and said she would take legal action. But I saw the fear in her eyes because deep down she knew the truth had come out. That moment changed everything. The power she thought she had, it started to crack. Everything inside me wanted to stay quiet. I had moved here to get away from all the stress, all the long meetings, all the legal fights I used to deal with in my old job. I had worked for more than 10 years in city planning, helping neighborhoods grow, fixing broken HOAs, and making sure people were treated fairly. I had read thousands of pages of property laws, written community policies, and even helped design some of the rules people like Karen were now twisting. But I kept that part of my life a secret. I came here to rest. I came here to start over. But now that past was knocking on my door again. When Karen blocked my workers, screamed in the street, and posted more lies about me online, I realized something important. This was not just about a shed anymore. This was about power, about fear, about one woman trying to control a whole community with fake rules and threats. And if I stayed silent, she would just do it again to someone else. So I made a decision. I stopped pretending to be someone I was not. I opened my old files, dusted off my planning books, and started looking at this situation through a different lens. Not as a quiet neighbor, but as a trained expert. I knew the laws better than Karen ever could. I knew where to find the loopholes she was using, and more importantly, I knew how to close them. I started taking detailed notes, recording dates, saving screenshots, and pulling up city records. I looked at the HOA's filings, their financial records, and their public meeting notes. What I found was shocking. But before I brought the evidence forward, I sat alone on my porch one evening, thinking about everything, the lies, the threats, the way people had turned away from me. And then I said to myself, I tried to leave that life behind, but if Karen wanted a fight, she was getting a professional. And with that, the quiet woman she thought she could bully was gone. In her place stood someone who had written the rules, fixed broken systems, and stood up for people who could not fight back. Karen had no idea who she was messing with, but she was about to find out. Once I stopped hiding who I was, everything changed. I no longer felt afraid or confused. I had a clear purpose now, to uncover the truth, not just for myself, but for every neighbor Karen had pushed around. I started looking deep into the Homeowners Association records, using my knowledge of how things were supposed to work. It did not take long before I found major problems. The HOA had not filed a single public financial report in the past 2 years. That was a big deal. By law, those reports must be shared with the community. Without them, the HOA's status was basically invalid. I kept going and checked their fee history. A few months ago, Karen had raised HOA fees by 40%, but I could not find any proof of a vote. No meeting, no notice, no permission from homeowners, just a sudden jump in charges. That was illegal. Then I checked the minutes, the notes they are supposed to keep from every meeting. What I found shocked me. The files were clearly fake. The language was vague. The dates did not match, and some of the signatures looked copied. It was like someone had written them in a rush just to make things look official. At this point, I knew something bigger was going on. This was not just one woman trying to scare me. This was a pattern of lies, cover-ups, and abuse of power. But then, the most unexpected thing happened. I received a quiet message from someone I never expected. Karen's husband, Mike. He asked to meet in private. He looked tired, ashamed, and nervous. He told me that he could not stay silent anymore. Then he handed me a folder, and inside it was everything I needed. There were emails between Karen and the other board members talking about me, about how they were going to make an example out of me to scare other homeowners into following rules that did not exist. There were screenshots of group chats where Karen bragged about using HOA funds to print flyers, pay for legal threats, and even host private board dinners at fancy restaurants. None of that money was ever approved by the community. Mike said he had warned her, begged her to stop, but she refused. She believed no one could touch her. That was the moment I knew. I had enough evidence not just to defend myself, but to show everyone what Karen was really doing. I contacted an old friend of mine, Lisa Williams, a respected investigative journalist. I told her everything, and she agreed to help me uncover the full truth behind this corrupted HOA. The pieces were falling into place, and soon everyone would see it. As I gathered all the evidence against Karen, I decided to go back to the very beginning, to the day I bought the property. I opened the original documents from the purchase, reading every line carefully. At first, nothing stood out, but then, buried in the middle of the paperwork, I found something I had missed before. My lot was not just outside the boundaries of the Homeowners Association, it was part of a city program, a very special one. It was called the Community Green Space Development Initiative. It was a project created to turn unused land into shared spaces like gardens, learning centers, or small parks. The goal was to make neighborhoods better, stronger, and more connected. And the most shocking part? I had actually helped design this very program during my years working in city planning. I sat there in silence, holding the papers, realizing the full truth. This was not just a legal matter anymore. This was about a city project, approved, funded, and protected by law. My little shed was not just a personal project. It was the first step in turning that lot into something beautiful for the entire community. Sarah, V.O. I helped write the laws that created this program. Karen was not just bullying me, she was blocking a city-funded improvement. That's criminal. Karen had not only overstepped her power, she had tried to destroy a government-supported plan meant to help her own neighborhood. And now I had proof. The situation had moved far beyond fake fines and nasty social media posts. Karen had crossed a line, and now the law was on my side in more ways than she could ever imagine. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, flipping through every page of my purchase agreement. I had already read it when I bought the land, but this time I looked at it with new eyes, like a planner, not just a homeowner. And there it was, hidden in plain sight, a reference to the city's Community Green Space Development Initiative. My lot was not only outside the HOA's reach, it had been selected and approved as part of an official city program. The project was created to help turn unused land into something meaningful for the community. I knew the program well because years ago I helped design it. I remembered the meetings, the paperwork, the vision behind it. The land I bought was protected by city laws, set aside to avoid interference from HOAs, exactly like Karen's. My small shed was meant to be the beginning of a community resource center, a place for gardens, workshops, and gathering. I realized something serious. This was no longer just personal. Karen had not only harassed me, she had tried to block a city-funded improvement, which could now be seen as a criminal act. Sarah, VO. I helped write the laws that created this program. Karen was not just bullying me, she was blocking a city-funded improvement. That's criminal. Days later, Karen called an emergency HOA meeting. Flyers went up around the neighborhood. Her message was loud and clear. I was ruining the community. She claimed I was breaking laws, building illegally, and hurting the environment. She demanded I tear everything down and pay a fine of $5,000. Her goal was to scare everyone into turning against me.